and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, January 11th, 2020. Can you believe it? We are officially open for business. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Oh, man, you guys sound excited. I love it.
Fantastic.
Spectacular.
Ausgezeichnet.
So we are without Zeb, and I believe he overslept. I'm just saying. He was streaming earlier today, and I think he stayed up the whole day. He said he was going to, right after the Europe show, he said he was going to go grab an hour or two sleep, and I think he might have just slept right on through. But that's okay. We will continue on, and he needs to sleep. So, all right, this week, wait, before we go any further, I have to make some kind of housekeeping notice here, because in the last Europe show, we brought up a situation where one of the group members kind of felt left out in the Telegram group and kind of said basically that they might want to go back to Windows because they don't think they can handle Linux or whatever. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're here in this group, it doesn't matter if you run Linux or you run Windows or you run Mac or whatever you run. We're in this group together to talk about Linux, and that's how the group was founded. But we're also a community, and we support each other regardless of what we choose to run. So if you decide that you want to run Windows, you don't feel that you need to leave. And that includes Zoom, that includes the YouTube chat, that includes Telegram groups, Discord. We're all community, and we should all support each other regardless of our choice of what we decide to use. So there's that.
Okay, Windows 10 next install.
We didn't say we wouldn't make fun of you, Colin. We just said you're welcome to be here.
So that's our next distro challenge, right?
Tony just gave a thumbs up. He's going for it already.
You can get it to work. There's a prize.
All right.
April 1st edition?
Distro challenge: dual boot Windows 3.1 and Hannah Montana Linux.
That's that's bad. That's no good, Dave. All right. Our distro challenge for the last 2 weeks has been Fedora 31. And we gave some of our opinions last week. And I don't know. I think we should be able to just run with going through the group and get through everybody's opinions on Fedora. We should have enough time to do that. So if you went last week and you just want to give a quick update of what you have done for this week, that's fine. But we're just going to go down the list and see how it makes out. So, Brad, welcome to Biddle. Glad you could make it.
Glad to be here.
Did you get to try Fedora 31?
I did not.
That's perfectly fine. And that's also another PSA that the distro challenge is not a necessity to join us on Zoom here. So you're more than welcome to join us on Zoom regardless if you did the distro challenge. So there's that. All right, Tony, give us your update maybe, or your synopsis of what you found in Fedora 31 this week.
I haven't done any more with it than last week, so I've nothing new to add. I've had mains power issues. I was without electricity. Well, technically for me it's yesterday, but to you guys it would be today, for about 6 hours while a cable was replaced in the main street outside. But it's all working okay again now, obviously. But
did you tell him that you needed electricity, dude? I mean, did you tell him that?
How else can you? I was a bit worried I wouldn't be on Biddle for the European edition. It was, the electric was only back a couple of hours before you came on, so it was iffy. But as far as Fedora goes, I can't say any more than I said last week. It worked fine for me. I had absolutely no issues, and I used the cinnamon version. I quite like Fedora. I just don't particularly like the package manager DNF Dragora, but you can get what you need on it. You can add bits to it to make it work better. So overall, it's a thumbs up.
Cool. That's a good synopsis. I like it.
Eris, you have anything to add from your previous report?
I tried running Fedora again. I tried installing the NVIDIA drivers, and I was not successful at all.
Ouch.
I followed those rules on RPM Fusion. It didn't do anything, I think, because when I went to the NVIDIA settings, it said it detected I wasn't using the proprietary driver. So I'm not sure what the problem was with that. I then moved to, I think, OpenSUSE, and then I moved to Manjaro, and I'm back in Kubuntu.
All right.
Well, that's a reason to use AMD.
I guess. I don't know. Sounds like a productive week anyway. So
it does.
Colin, I'm just gonna skip over you because I know you didn't try.
Nah,
Fedora.
I've tried it before, but I didn't try it yet.
All right, fair enough. Nate.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Great. So Fedora, I like Fedora actually. It's if I didn't have OpenSUSE, if OpenSUSE just disappeared tomorrow, I would be on Fedora. That said, there's some things I just don't like about Fedora. As far as it, the installer. Like I used to complain a little bit about the OpenSUSE installer, but to me it's a little bit more makes sensey than the Fedora installer. They've changed it recently too. It's not as like it used to be, which I think it's an improvement. But I don't know. I had trouble with the like going through the process. Like I had trouble with it, doing the right thing. I had to like go back and redo the steps. Like it didn't stop me, which maybe it might be a good thing, but it didn't. Anyway, the Plasma experience. I wasn't gonna do GNOME again. I'm GNOME fatigued. I can't do any more GNOME. I need a good like.
That's fair.
I need like a 3-year break from GNOME, honestly, and then maybe I'll come back to it when maybe they fix their single thread issue. So anyway, it's okay. I mean, it's good. I can make it. I can mold it to what I want, and I don't have any. I mean, it's not. It's like there's different levers you got to pull to make it work. And I just got to find those levers. I don't have. I mean, I don't know what Eris. Well, I don't have NVIDIA too, but I can pull the right levers and it works for me. And I find like the upgrade process is really nice in Fedora. You can jump from one version to the next, and it just seems to kind of work, But it's not. I mean, I don't know. I think it's well done. I think it's solid, and I think. So here's what the way I see it. Some people look at Fedora the same way you look at an Ubuntu, and I don't think that's the right lens to look at Fedora. It's a more, if I may say, like it's like an industrial Linux. It doesn't necessarily have all the nice cushy soft, interior pieces you would find like in a sedan. It doesn't have those. If you bang your head, you're going to bang your head hard, but if you know what you're doing, you can do a lot more with it. It's like a bulldozer. It's kind of how I look at it. And I feel like it's, to look at it in the same way you do in Ubuntu, how Ubuntu is kind of, it helps you along a little bit more. I don't think it's a fair comparison really, because it's just a different audience. So it appeals to me because it's like the Linux of old, the Linux that I grew up in, as far as doing it yourself. And so I like it the way it is. It's not like do it yourself like Arch where you have to mine the ore and then smelt it and then start. No, first you have to build the mining facility first, But anyway, it's not like that. It's the part's already there. You just have to follow the instructions. So that's how I look at it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I agree with you in a lot of ways. So yeah.
So you're saying that Fedora is the D8
Mr.
of
Dan,
Linux?
I know you went last week, but do you have an update for us?
Yes, much like Nate, it does. I got the feeling that it doesn't really have much foam padding inside of it as far as getting things to work. You remember I talked about having Steam issues. I resolved those. Actually, the Fedora I had in a virtual machine I started out with, I just one night said, I wonder if I can get Steam to work in the virtual machine. And sure enough, I did the RPM Fusion to install it, and it installed it all. And I'm like, it occurred to me what happened. When you get to the finished part of installing Steam with RPM Fusion, there's a box that tells you to log into your account or are you a new user? If you click that box and don't do nothing, you will never see it again and Steam will not work. If you put your account credentials in it, no problem. and I got that fixed on the hardware. That I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I also found somewhere in the Fedora wiki language website the instructions to install the NVIDIA driver and get the NVIDIA app console to come up in the menu. So I was able to accomplish them things. Would I use this every day? No, I prefer some of the cushy tools maybe that Ubuntu has or some of the other distros. It is it's a workhorse, but it's not for somebody that's looking for easy on the run.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And I think that's what Nate was trying to say as well, is that it's just their intent is not to make an easy general use desktop. And so you can do it, but you have to add the pieces in. And sometimes it doesn't work maybe as in a straightforward way. So yeah, I think it's just like any of these distros where they sort of position themselves, they have their place, and it's good to know that it seems functionally like it's worked well for everybody in terms of just getting it on, getting the system set up. It's really more about once you start trying to do those everyday desktop things where it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I need codecs and I need all these repositories and all this stuff. So, you know, again, when we do these, I think everybody understands that this isn't intended to be a negative thing in any way. And I don't think that anyone on the Fedora team hearing us say, yeah, it was a little challenging to get proprietary stuff working would be like, oh, yeah, boy, that's a big miss for us. I think.
Well, I got to the point where I'm wondering if this happens on other distros too. If you just throw away the install box for Steam, or the login box rather, that it gives you up front, you're just you're done with Steam. You know, you have to reinstall the distro again.
Could be, and I'm guessing that if maybe you pulled out that there's a .steam directory, there's some stuff there that you could probably have wiped and maybe reinstalled without having to completely nuke the system. But still, would that same situation happen on another system? It's entirely likely. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but that's something to keep in mind if you use Steam to, when it's done installing, complete the install by logging putting your junk in it.
Right. Well, it's good. You know, kudos to you for going back and taking another look and figuring out. So
I must have installed it and had a list of things that I wanted to install, which I did, and I just blew it aside and kept going to other things.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. At least you figured it out. That's always a good feeling to at least know that, you know, you were able to.
When I got it to work in the VM, I knew exactly what I did wrong.
There you go. Yep. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Dan, for that. Jason, good to see you.
Good evening.
How are you today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Just fine. I apologize. I don't remember. Did you go last week, or did you have an update for us this week?
I have an update for you. Last week I was having the issues of actually getting it to install. For whatever reason, it didn't like the trying to do a dual boot with Linux MX. So I had to do a fresh install. You know, and that actually worked. It stopped failing during the installation, and I was able to get it to run. But then I ran into weird profile issues when I was trying to run either Firefox or Google Chrome, which I downloaded, and Chromium and all the others. Every time I try to run one of those, it claimed that that Linux MX was still using the profile, which is really weird because Linux MX should not have been on that hard drive anymore. If I did because it was supposed to do a full erase and reinstall of the operating system and a new install of the Fedora. I had that issue. Then I had some issues with I downloaded like I like to mess around with like Conky and stuff like that, messing with the customization there. But every time I try to run Conky Manager or Conky on there, it would all be distorted in the background. Like when you load up like CMod or something like that, it would all just be a bunch of gibberish and stuff like that. It wouldn't even load properly. So I had all kinds of issues with that installation of Fedora.
Got it. Makes sense.
Tyler, how was your Fedora life?
So I've played with it on my ThinkPad off and on since its release, and really a couple things to note. Real good positive. GNOME software, when you have different sources enabled, when you click on a packet, a piece of software in GNOME software, and it is available from multiple sources, you'll actually get a drop down on the top right to allow you to select the source. That was very nice. Most any other distro I've used GNOME software on, it just, if it's from multiple sources, if you can get in a Flatpak or an RPM and a Snap, it will actually list the piece of software like 3 or 4 different times, and that could create a confusing experience as to finding which one you really want. So combining it all in one and allowing you to have that drop down to select the source, fantastic. But I did run into an issue with Flatpaks and Qt applications having the icon for the open application in the dock not show an icon at all when under Wayland. So that was a bit weird.
Were you running Plasma or GNOME?
GNOME. This was GNOME.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you have a example of a program that would have been in there twice? I was just trying to look for it now.
Oh shoot, something like, I guess, Quassel for an IRC client, or
Okay, that's fine. I'll check it out. I just was wondering.
But yeah, that drop down menu to allow you to select the source, that was fantastic.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to throw in on there on your Fedora pile?
Nothing that, I mean, it was Fedora, GNOME, it was stable. There's nothing really much beyond that I can make a note of.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Paul, how was your Fedora experience? Did you try it?
I did not do Fedora X. I'm still on Ubuntu Studio. I've been skipping the challenges. I've been, holidays and stuff. So
I gotcha. That's understandable. You gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Right.
All right, Eric, are you there? I would like to get your take on Fedora, dude.
Well, I gave it last week a little bit. So
is there an update?
Well, the update was I did some more testing this week just on some different things, and I had to go back in several times. And between the workstation version and the Cinnamon version, the spins themselves, I think, are really well done for the various desktops. Workstation, interestingly, I saw a bunch of people having issues with Workstation. And by a bunch, I mean, I probably 3 or 4 just in Telegram saying that, they had a hard time for whatever reason, but then that dry spin and the spin would work. So not entirely sure what would be causing that, but really it comes down to, I think that Fedora does a really good job of putting an almost stock version of the desktop environment, no matter what you get, the workstation or the spins. They have a very minimal set of desktop environment appropriate packages. And so it's Fedora as the base, but there's not a lot of extra stuff they do right above and beyond that. And so I think I do appreciate the fact that they are leaving it mostly stock in a lot of cases. I mean, they've got their wallpaper, that kind of stuff, but and yeah, I mean, the tool set itself is really, DNF is fine. It's not difficult to use. I think it's a little interesting how it always wants to refresh itself, even pretty much immediately. So there's some changes I made. There was actually a pretty good forum thread on some changes that folks were making. Once you get RPM Fusion on and get the codecs installed, get the NVIDIA drivers installed. So it's sort of the extra work you have to do to get it up and running. You can live with it as a desktop, a general use desktop. But again, I think it just comes down to really they're positioning themselves as a workstation and setup. And I also mentioned last week, I like that they are a test bed for new technologies and how within the next few releases, they plan on adopting Pipewire as an alternative to Pulse audio. And, you see new things cropping up. They're very quick to adopt new technologies and try to get them into a practical environment so folks can use them. And so from that perspective, I think they provide a service in a lot of ways to everybody using Linux. And so I really appreciate that out of that team. Yeah.
Well, we talked about it on Biddle Europe a little bit, and there was a few people that had mentioned it doesn't have maybe the bells and whistles that a regular GNOME version would have, or I should say a tweaked version of GNOME would have. The theming isn't. It didn't seem like they took a whole lot of time in the theming, but
right, they're using Adwaita, right? I mean,
right.
It's, yeah.
Well, going to your point, I was trying to say that maybe they're concentrating on just giving you that stable desktop rather than all the little bells and whistles, and that goes to that corporate feel that you were talking about. So
yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is I did reach out to Matthew Miller to see if he was interested in showing up tonight. He was interested in showing up. He was unable to show up because of prior commitments, but he does want to come on the show and talk to us about Fedora and what they're working on and stuff. So I think later, maybe in a couple of weeks, we will definitely give him maybe the second hour of a show and talk about Fedora. So
yeah, and I think the last point I want to make is that I said this as well last week. I mean, we're on Fedora 31, right? They've been doing this for a very long time, and they've been successful at doing it and continue to do it. They may not have the largest user base, but they obviously are very structured, very disciplined about what they do. And when I think of what are the Linux distributions, like the overall sphere of distributions, certainly Fedora has got to be one of those top 5 Linux distros that is just always there. You know what you're getting.
Yep.
And if I had to set up secure workstations for an enterprise environment, I would definitely consider Fedora to be a good option. So.
Yep. All right, moving on. Dave, sir, how are you tonight?
Excellent. How are you?
Awesome. I'm here talking to you guys. So, hey. Fedora 31?
Like last week, it's still solid as a rock. Did some more testing with it. Unlike most people, I think it's a perfectly reasonable desktop environment. I had no problem with it. I enjoyed it. It sets up like all the others I do. The only niggles I had with it, that's quoting Nate, sorry to steal your word. But
no, it's not mine.
One was the fault of my laptop because I opened up Steam and installed a game and went to play it, and it said your GPU is not good enough to run this game. And it's like a 5-year-old Toshiba satellite, so I know it's the laptop. So that was not Fedora's fault. And the only other thing that would keep me from using it as a daily driver, because I liked it and it just worked, was the fact that the VPN I currently use doesn't have an RPM install, only a deb install. So if I were to change VPN or decide to be industrious and go through OpenVPN and set all the config files by hand, which I really don't feel like doing, it would be perfect for me. I had no issues with it at all. And like I said, I thought it was a perfectly reasonable, everyday desktop environment. It did not feel bland to me or industrial to me at all.
Would you say though, Dave, that you are, so when you say everyday normal setup for you, you're used to Arch being sort of foundational, and then you are choosing what you want to add on top of that?
Yeah, but there was nothing that I couldn't locate
no,
for
that's
Fedora.
Not my point. My point being that it's not that you couldn't do it. It's just that you appreciate being able to have a sort of baseline that you can then extend the way that you see fit, versus I think maybe there's, at least on some users' expectation, that a lot of that work's already been done. And you're more or less at that point, you're just adding the applications you want, not foundational system things.
Yes. I see your point. Unlike a lot of people, I like my system how I like my system. So getting a nice solid stock base in, and then let me tweak it how I want. Yeah, occasionally I'll install something that's, preset with lots of bells and whistles and this and then, all the other stuff. And usually within a day or two, I'm hacking at it to get rid of some stuff and change other stuff, and usually end up breaking it within 12 to 15 hours. So that's why I appreciate Fedora. It is an incredibly solid base stock install that I can tweak and set up how I want with really a minimal of effort.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Penguin, have you got a Fedora 31 story for us?
Actually, no, I don't.
Okay.
I stopped testing it about Monday because I had other stuff I had to do. So there's no update.
Okay, fair enough. Steve?
Good evening.
How are you?
Actually, I just installed it right before the show.
All right, you pulled the Tony, but on the opposite end.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like the installer one pretty well. It started out with the download when I went to the website, and I did it off my main computer this time, which plugged into the Ethernet, and the 1.9 gig download. I blinked and it was like downloaded. I've never seen, they must have pretty good servers on their end. Made my USB and installed it. Where I was having problems with other, systems that use Calamares. This system, what's their installer? I forget. It's
Anaconda.
Anaconda. My computer booted right up. Although I did, when it said, the button came up, finish completing installation.
Mm-hmm.
You click it, and it was like, wasn't doing anything. And then I rebooted, and it went through all its closed down stuff. But then the final thing was something about shutdown. Something failed, and it was stuck on that screen. I held the button down on the laptop. It rebooted. It went in fine. I actually do find Fedora very well themed. There's just something about GNOME on Fedora that just looks really nice. From the sign-on screen and all that, for what I was able to do. Remembering from 29, I remembered to install RPM Fusion. I mean, I really didn't get to install much, but got OBS installed. Switched over to Xorg because I was going to attempt to maybe see if I can record something and that, but I have been cooking dinner and that. I don't know. It's not something I would use, but it's, from the polish. I don't know who it was. I thought last week someone said that they didn't find it very polished.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually find, as a personal thing, Fedora's GNOME, is more polished to me than like Ubuntu. I just I don't know what it is, but but like it's like time is taken with the login screen, and it looks nice for what I had gotten into so far.
Cool.
But I have no real complaints.
That's a good report. Yeah. Vince, how are you, sir?
Very well, Dan. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yep.
Have you a Fedora update?
Yes. Well, I missed last week, so I've got a little bit of a list
cool.
for you. My first experience with Fedora was with the net installer on Fedora 29, and I actually still have that VM going, and it's been solid as rock. I've upgraded it to 30 and now 31, and it's had no problems. But for this challenge, I actually put Fedora 31 workstation GNOME on some hardware, just a testing laptop that I have. And overall, it's been okay. I've had a few little niggles. If I start with the installer, I agree with what's been said previously that it probably does need a little bit of fine-tuning. The example that I could give is probably if you are selecting partitions, some of them don't have the drop-down box. So, for example, with EFI boot, with boot/EFI, you had to type that in, and if you don't know what you're doing, then that could be very tricky. when I first boot into Fedora, any distro really, I normally like to mount an SMB share that I have and pull down some files that I've got. But this didn't work this time around. It actually had an error and it wouldn't connect. And I did a bit of searching and found that there's actually a bug that's been reported in Bugzilla for Red Hat. The fix was just to go into smb.conf and edit something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and it started working after that. But I hadn't had that problem previously with 29 and 30, so that must be something a bit new. And there was another bug that I noticed, and it's the same as what I think you mentioned, Rocco, in the European show, about whenever I boot into Fedora, the first thing that I see is a notification that says error, something about updates not working, an error, start service by name for org freedesktop.fwupd.
That's the exact thing, man.
Yeah, and it does it every single time that I boot Fedora. I think I've done a bit of a search, but I couldn't find any bugs reported just yet, so I'm not quite sure if that's still yet to come or if it's just individual cases. I found Flatpaks worked very well. I installed Telegram, I installed Discord, I think, as Flatpaks, and they work really well. I don't get why there are some basic packages missing, and the one that I point to is Nano. So I use Nano quite a fair bit, and that was just missing. And it just seemed a bit weird when pretty much every single other distro just has it. What else have I got? I tried to live as long as I could without RPM Fusion, but it just wasn't going to work. My life was much better once I enabled RPM Fusion. But I am managing to continue to use GNOME without any extensions. That's a thing, and I've got to say it's been very smooth. I had to do one thing. I did have to change from Wayland to Xorg because one of the programs that I normally use just wouldn't work with Wayland, and that's a KVM remote control program that I use called Barrier. Yeah,
that makes
it didn't
sense.
work.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't want to start another controversy, but this mainly applies to laptop users, and we have, how we have single click and double click.
Sure.
Well, I really don't like natural scrolling.
Oh yeah.
I think that needs to go away because we're not using a tablet, we're using a touchpad. But overall, I found Fedora really stable. It's solid. I think it is like everybody else has said. It's targeted more maybe to a professional, someone like a sysadmin who is working more in a commercial space, because it just requires a little bit of work to get it going as a day-to-day desktop. They're my thoughts.
I don't know. I think natural scrolling should be default. No, just kidding.
You and I, Rocco, are going to have to continue to disagree.
Yeah, I
just wanted to start
Rocco.
something. That's all.
Single click and natural scrolling. Wow.
Just eliminate scrolling altogether and triple click. Why not?
Well, Vince, I got that same error. Were you able to update through the terminal though?
Yes, so updating through a terminal worked fine. With that error, I found that initially when you open up Software Center, no updates would show up, but then after a while it would sync itself and seem to appear. So I think it's just something timing out on initial boot.
Well, I tried to do these updates from the Software Center multiple times, rebooted. Every time it failed. So every time I rebooted, I got that same error. When I went to update through the terminal, it said basically there were no updates to do. It was already updated. I don't know what's going on with that, but there's definitely some kind of bug.
When I saw the error, I immediately updated through the terminal, and that worked. When I saw the error again, I left it for a while, and then I updated from Software Center, and that worked.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl.
Rocco, I had the same exact problem you're describing, and I just kind of worked around it.
Well, I think that we should at least... I'm going to try to at least file a bug so that they know about it. We'll see how far it goes.
Yeah. I noticed that whenever you do the update, the only real feedback you're getting while it's at least the system update part is there's a tiny little blue progress bar that's in the button.
Yes.
And so for a while today, I updated a virtual machine and it just sat, and I wasn't sure, is it doing something? And then eventually I could see just that little blue line start, and it did finally go. But yeah, it can be a little confusing. So
does anybody have the bug reporting page for Fedora?
It's Bugzilla, I think. I'd dig it up for you if you need.
Yeah, I will definitely report the bug. But anyway, go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Something that occurred to me. So we've all talked about, there's last mile kind of stuff to make it easier for desktop users, missing packages. I mean, missing in the sense that, what you'd expect from a desktop perspective. So I thought, well, okay, something that's common is that, someone will base a derivative off of a particular distro, right? And so I thought, well, let me check on DistroWatch and see what's based on Fedora, thinking maybe, well, someone's already done this. Oh, you want to say goodnight? Sorry, I'm being
That's okay.
asked.
I did want to note that there was, there's in the actual menu of GNOME, you have a problem reporting page that you can open up. It's under the utilities in the menu, but yet it doesn't show any issue concerning that update that failed. So I'm not exactly sure what part that problem reporting plays, like whatever. Not sure what that to me, if there was an error with the with an update, it should show up in the problem reporting, but maybe that's not how it works out. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to catch a error on update during boot or something. Yeah, it may not be able to capture that. So, but anyway, my thought on using Fedora as a base, has someone done this? And looks like there was this Hanthana Linux, but looks like 30 is their latest version. And then you have, CentOS, Red Hat, ClearOS, Cubes, Network Security Kit, ROX cluster. So you can see here, even the derivatives are sort of enterprise focused, right? So that kind of tells you again what the focus of Fedora is, and people who are using it even downstream are doing with it. So anyway, so okay, well, Stephen, are you there, sir?
Oh, hey Eric, hey guys.
What's happening?
Oh, not too much. Fedora 31. I played with it a little bit, not a ton. I've played with Fedora in the past, quite a few times. We were talking about the Fedora being more of a base system and not as much of an end user distro like Ubuntu Mate or Mint, something like that. And I would kind of compare Fedora to a more updated Debian. It's not there's not a lot based on Fedora like Debian is, but from the perspective of it's very clean, very very stock, and a platform to build what you want, as opposed to something that's ready to go out of the box like Mint. And I think it's more of just a style of what you're looking for in a distro. If you're looking for something that's more like Windows, where you're just going to install it and go, then it's probably not the best. But if you're looking for something if you're like an Arch user like Dave, or somebody who likes to build something from scratch, likes to use window managers, that sort of thing, or just are part of the Red Hat ecosystem, and they want to keep up with what's changing in Red Hat down the pipe, I think it's great. I still would probably prefer a Debian myself, but I mean, Fedora is a good option.
I think that's a perfect analogy of what Fedora is, just like you said with Dave. Dave liked it because it's basically that baseline that he's looking for, and it's something you can build on, where it's not that flashy out of the box, already set up distro for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. Appreciate that. Big Pod. Are you there, sir? Oh, we may have caught him at an inopportune moment. All right, let's skip Big Pod. Mo West, Mr. Steve, are you there, sir?
I can try, but I don't know if this is going to stick because you guys keep dropping out on me. Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, you sound fine right now, so go for it.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to pop on tonight and talk about Fedora. I've been using Fedora pretty heavily for the last 8 months, from Fedora 30 release and then I've upgraded to 31. You can see in the chat I've done a number of different things with it, but I actually didn't want to talk so much about the desktop or the install experience or anything like that, but I was really struck by a question that Rocco asked last week. Why would somebody use Fedora? And I think it was Adam gave a really neat answer. Well, it's about the plumbing. I want to add one other thing to that and say it's all about it's also about the community. And that's really why I've gotten into Fedora. You guys know that I ran Bodhi Linux and loved it and still love it. They have a great community. Ubuntu Mate is another one that I run. In fact, I default to that when I have to put something on a computer that somebody else is going to touch besides me. And I love that community as well. It's an awesome community. But what I have found in Fedora is it's a community that's given me a pathway to actually contribute back to the project. And in 2020, one of the things that I really want to do is to contribute to an open source project, and Fedora has given me that opportunity. I've gotten some great mentorship from the community to do some contributing. I've done very little, but I'm learning a lot, and I have a pathway and a way that I can use my gifts and talents to contribute back to open source. And that to me is one of the most exciting things about Fedora.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's awesome, Steve. That is fantastic to hear. Contributing back is one of the best gifts you can give.
Did we? Is Big Pod? Or did you want to get in or no? Why did we skip him? Did we skip him?
He was having technical issues. I think he's back.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't have much to say because this week I was preparing for a LAN party I had today, so the whole week off was basically that and almost nothing more.
So you were pretty much updating Windows, really? Is that what you were doing?
No. I was playing with servers, network equipment, me and a couple other guys. Actually, for some time I was the only guy playing games on Linux. And then I switched to Windows.
Nice. All right, anybody else want to add anything on Fedora?
One thing I'd like to add is even if you're not running Fedora, one thing to check out is the Fedora Magazine. That's pretty great stuff. Really good articles in there, and they're just Linux in general articles that the project puts out. So yeah, good helpful hints there, I think.
Yeah, Fedora definitely has a very polished team of people that do a lot of work to polish their websites, their documentation, their Planet Fedora, all of that stuff. And you're right, it's great general use. It's almost like, I'm just going to say DigitalOcean, where you may not even host servers on DigitalOcean, but they have so much good documentation that it's just it's just a good resource. It's the Arch Wiki, right? It's kind of the same thing. Where
It's the Arch Wiki of servers.
Right, exactly. So, so yeah, they do a service to the community just through that, if nothing else, certainly. Go ahead.
I can say right out of the box, when I installed it with dual monitors, it put the monitors together right and everything, and you could find matching wallpapers for each monitor. You didn't have to do much tinkering as far as the displays went.
All right.
Actually, I wanted to ask one question. I'm sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I was going to say the Fedora Magazine, that is awesome. And I will say that somebody in this group here might have been in the OpenSUSE marketing meeting, and we were all looking at. They were looking at it. So.
Yeah.
Right.
It really is great stuff.
It's, yeah.
So I know it was mentioned a couple times, just kind of a bit of a tangent. Something, we work towards federating social media networks. We have this federated video tool like that try to compete with YouTube. Why is it that we encourage bug reports? Why don't we have a federated bug reporting system? So I could have an account with one bug reporting tool, but if I try something out and want to be able to report a bug for it, I'm having to create an entirely separate account there.
Yeah, that's just the single sign-on, having federated stuff between servers, and it's. I mean, the practical reasons. It's. I agree in theory. Why doesn't it exist?
Something we can all agree upon. Yeah.
Yeah. It's why don't standards stick? Why isn't there one way to do a lot of things?
Oh yeah, it would just be so handy.
The question I had, I agree with you. I'm sorry, not to, but I just thought I've seen people talk about running Fedora on servers, and I was curious, does anyone here have experience with that? Is it something that you've ever tried? I mean, I don't see why, other than you wouldn't necessarily need an entire desktop environment. So I guess you'd just want to run like the net install kind of thing.
Yeah. So we have had some in the past. We don't now. We're mostly an Ubuntu shop. But some of the servers we've had in the past have been Fedora. And yeah.
Is there an advantage to that over like CentOS or?
Well, it's more like Ubuntu. It's more rapid as far as the the updates you're going to get and the packages. It kind of depends. But yeah, I guess there's probably less support these days. I would say if you rolled the clock back, 5-10 years ago, I think there was more of a need for it. I don't know. It's yeah, personal preference. I think at this point.
Okay, it occurred to me while we were talking that no one had mentioned it in the last 2 weeks.
It's a lot more rapid rollout, obviously, because you're getting a new release every 9 months, so your packages are going to be more frequent, but you're going to have to stay on top of it. So it's kind of handy for maybe something that's development and you're doing some testing, maybe.
And so what the strategy is going to be? Red Hat is a solid base. CentOS is going to be, or at least have an option to be rolling.
Well, now, yeah, they just rolled that out though, so yeah.
Okay.
The whole way that whole structure has changed in the last year is probably going to take everybody some time to get caught up to the way it works.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Yep. And I would also like to thank all of the people that are involved in Fedora and all of the time and effort they put into it. There wasn't too many complaints on the system other than it being different, like on the installer, and there wasn't a lot of bling basically on the theming and the setup itself. But as a base system, it's a fantastic distro, and I just want to say thank you to everybody for that. All right, that is our take on Fedora 31. And now we have to pick a distro for the next 2 weeks. So I have 4 distros on the list here, and we're just going to pick one. So we'll let it up to you guys and see what you want to do. But Tramjaro is still on that list from, I think, last week or the week before we talked about it. That is a distro basically wanting to focus on free and open source software. That's the basic focus of that.
My only I'm just going to jump in and say we just went through Fedora, which is very much similar in terms of only wanting to include free and open source. So I'm not dissuading us from trying it at some point, but I think it's kind of slightly going to be a similar experience that a lot of people have with Tramjaro.
The others are Arch Labs was mentioned before. And there is also the Farron OS Next Plasma, which seems to be pretty nice. And Also, the last 2 weeks, last week on the regular biddle and this week on the Europe biddle, Yuri Herrera was here to talk about Nitrix and what they're up to, and that's the app image based Linux distro, and they're collaborating with Manjaro right now to offer, I guess there's a ISO that Nitrix is offering. There's also an ISO that Manjaro is offering with the desktop that Nitrix uses, which is a modified KDE Plasma desktop.
I'm full of opinions tonight. I apologize, but so I had never seen this guy before, but I saw you commented on his video. Is it Tyler? He's a Brit, a younger British guy.
Tyler's Tech or Tech Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did the Manjaro one, and it looks like it might be a little rough for folks. I'm not sure, because in even Nitrix they kind of said it's a development release. So I mean, if we're cool with knowing that it's going to be buggy, definitely be buggy, not maybe buggy, definitely buggy, then that would be, because it does look really cool. Like there's a lot of neat features and changes and stuff to Plasma, but I do wonder if that's going to work well for everybody.
Well, I don't know how well it's going to work for everybody. I think it's very interesting to look at what their vision of KDE is and what KDE is possible in doing, and also the whole app image thing really intrigues me. So I do like that idea, but I really do like the Farron OS too. So I don't know. You guys put your votes out there.
I think I would go with Farron.
I think I would go with Farron too, mainly just because Nitrix is not necessarily ready for release at the moment.
Well, at least that version, right? Because if you want to get
that version, that's what I was talking about. The version,
right. Yeah. I just want to make sure that's clear that folks don't think that Nitrix doesn't have a production version. It's just not free. That's all.
I know I've never tried Arco.
Arch Labs.
You mean
Arch Labs? Okay.
I mean, Arch Labs is really cool. The open box and the i3 implementation is very slick. It's very minimal, but it's beautiful. I mean, they've done a great job on it, so I'm not discounting it. So they're both good choices, Arch Labs and Farron.
Yeah, I would be interested in Arch Labs.
But Farron's now is a full release, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I've been testing it out, and it's put together. It's ready to go to look at. Yeah.
All right, so we have to get a show of hands of this, and you guys got to help me count because I'm not good at that. So obviously, some people have said Farron, some people have said Arch Labs. So we'll drop the Nitrix and Manjaro for now. They'll still be on the list, but not for this 2-week challenge. So, who would like to try Farron OS? Let me see a show of hands here.
I would.
Audible show of hand because I don't have a camera hooked up.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like almost everybody.
I can go either way.
And anybody who would want to try Arch Labs?
I use it already, and I'll just say that if you haven't at least taken a look at it, it's worth it. So whether or not we do it this week, this is not a like Farron is better than Arch. Yeah. It needs to stay there. It's definitely worth looking at.
Is it his main desktop i3?
No, it's open box and i3. So you can do either one. You can either have a floating window with open box or a tiling with i3. It's the way they've done it is very ingenious.
That's kind of slick.
All right, so it looks like to me that Farron OS will be the next distro challenge.
And is he even here tonight? Is he in the chat?
Didn't see him.
He's going to be so disappointed.
But it's unusual for him.
He's everywhere.
From comments in the Telegram groups, he'll know before the end of the show.
Yeah. Arch Labs will still be on the list. That will go along with Nitrix and Manjaro to stay on that list, and a few others that have been on the list for a while as well. But Farron OS, Plasma Next is the next distro challenge, no pun intended.
Yeah, but isn't he confusing now Farron OS is now Farron OS Classic.
The cinnamon version is Classic, yes.
Is Farron Next is now just Farron OS.
That's correct.
Yeah, so Mitchell made the comment which version, and the version as of the renaming from December is now Farron OS is the Plasma release. Farron OS Classic is the previous Cinnamon release.
Right.
So I think we're all looking at Farron OS specifically here.
Yeah, the Plasma version, yes.
Farron OS actually came on holidays with me on a little laptop. I ended up coming home with Peppermint.
I was going to say, he lives in England, dude. I mean, like, what?
I had one issue with it. In the hotels, some of them connect to internet, and you have to put a username or something in within the browser. And for some reason, it just wouldn't connect. I don't know why. So I don't know if that's a Plasma thing. Some people might have experience with that, but I just had trouble connecting. It just kept disconnecting on me all the time.
Yeah, Colin, I've seen that too with Plasma specifically, and also
Okay.
with my iOS devices. And sometimes if you can see what your IP address is, you just go to the .1, and it's actually forces it to bring up that authentication page.
Okay.
It's just a trick I use because it happens to me on occasion.
Just .1.
So like if you're connecting to your router at home, you know how it's always the .1 on your subnet.
Yeah, I was at the hotel, so I didn't really know.
If you could just see what your IP address is and you just put the .1. It doesn't always work, but it's one of those dumb little things that every now and then will fix it.
Okay.
Well, I think people who have tried Plasma and yet never tried Farron OS will be pretty surprised at what he has been able to do with Plasma.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, we'll get a post together in the forum and just cover some of the highlights, because there are definitely some interesting things, like he's using Nemo as the file manager instead of Dolphin, which you think Plasma.
We won't hold that against him.
It's still very good. I mean, it's
better.
But he said you can install Plasma or Dolphin if you want. I mean, but he has a very unique vision of what the desktop should be.
Where's the ban button?
Yeah, I think I've got that.
Much better.
You know what else occurred to me today? I was looking at the 2004 release of Kubuntu, and they've got that simple menu in there that he's using on his desktop. So I was thinking, what's Farron been doing?
Well, the simple menu has always been like a really good choice, with the exception of when you have dual monitors. I have found in my experience that simple menu, it works great on a single screen. If you have dual monitors, it always seems to want to open up at the wrong place. So if you have it over here, it'll open up on the second screen.
But do you mean the new one, the Farron one?
Well, I don't know. I haven't tried the new Farron Plasma Next.
I don't know if you're talking about the right menu.
Well, the simple menu was a widget inside of Plasma.
No, this is a different thing.
Yeah, he's done a very windowish menu. It looks
On a related note, they are actually looking at replacing Kickoff with simple menu in upstream Plasma.
Yeah, I heard that.
Simple menu looks clean. Like the elementary menu.
Yes,
very similar to that.
It's been a Plasma widget for a while. You could add it as I would always replace the kickoff menu with simple menu or one of the other ones, and it's always been a great menu look wise. But like I said, on dual monitors, it didn't always play well. So
got it.
It'd be nice if you could bring the shutdown buttons down to the bottom rather than keep them up the top. I don't think you can change that in simple menu, can you?
There wasn't many options, if I remember correctly, on simple menu.
No, you're right. I didn't see any. I was trying that in Kubuntu, and you right click, and there's very, very few options. Which for KDE is kind of strange.
Yes, hasn't Farron been contributing as a dev to KDE lately?
Yeah, I think
for a while now. Anyway,
yeah.
So but that's not that's. Okay. Since we have been mentioning Plasma, I just wanted to mention that in those notes that Nate posts every week, he says they're very close to finally having root operations on Dolphin.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. I love it.
What's Dolphin?
The best file manager on the planet, Colin. That's what it is.
Dolphin is Nemo Light.
Isn't he that guy that develops MX?
You can say that again.
I was going to say I prefer Nautilus myself, but
commonly known as a porpoise. Also, sometimes it's a tuna.
All right. we're at the middle of the show here, so there are a few topics we can talk about, but I would like to get what everybody's been up to lately in their content and whatever. I know a lot of you guys have been putting out videos, been putting out blog posts. I do want to thank Thomas from Draugr OS for his post on the Biddle blog about Ubuntu Arch style, I think it was. That was, I think, just as detailed as the Arch wiki, but it was his take on it. So you should go read it and give him your feedback on it. But that was excellent, and I would just like to get everybody's what everybody's been up to. So Nate, do you want to kick us off there? What you've been up to? Because you've been up to a lot, dude.
Sure. So I talked to Eric about this, but we have some things planned for February, he and I do, and I'm kind of getting prepared for that. And part of that is I am finishing up, I have like 36 partially started articles on my site. And what I'd like to do is pare that down to something manageable. So I've been doing like all year, so 11 days this year, plus a couple in last year, I've been releasing one article every day. So I've got it down to 34 now. I don't know how the math works out, but it did. So I'm down to 34, and I'm trying to like just kind of get some things like finish my thoughts, put these out there, and so forth. And see if I can spark up some conversation, see if anything that I'm working on, see if people care. And for most of it, no, nobody cares. But that's okay because I'm doing it for me.
That's not true.
Own,
Nate. That's not true.
That's not true at all.
It's definitely not true.
I have proof of that, Nate. Nate. Somebody's going to be writing for OpenSUSE.
Really?
I don't. Who
would that be, Nate?
Me? No, definitely not me. No, I don't know if that was premature to say, but somebody.
No, it's not. I already have access and everything else.
Yeah, people take notice, Nate. Come on, let's not sell ourselves.
So it was taken notice over on the OpenSUSE side, all the writing that I do, and so they asked if I would be interested. Well, I did say, hey, I'm if you need any help, and they says, hey, yeah, I read some of your stuff. Not, it's okay, not too bad. You want to help. Anyway, so I'll be doing that as well. But I want to kind of clear my plate off as much as possible, and then get ready for, some new things that I'm planning here with Eric in the very near future. So.
Well, what are they? I mean, we won't tell anybody.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Does anybody watch this? We're just. I'm going to be So Eric, I don't want to speak for Eric, but he is a web technologist.
Yep.
Been an internet, yeah, right. You're kind of a web guy. You are like super duper smart about with all these web things, and I'm having some kind of at an impasse a little bit with my current web hosting offerings. And so I've been talking to Eric about it for like the last 6 months, and we're going to migrate I'm gonna go self-hosted on this. And so there's a lot of things I don't know, and so I think Eric and I are gonna do a series of kind of going through all my knowledge gaps, the things that I need to learn, and then go total self-hosted and so forth. So that's kind
is
of.
Is this going to be
I'm
in? Is this going to be like a video, or is this a DL and extend, or what is this going to be?
Everything.
It'll probably be a bunch.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but it'll be an amalgamation. So we're gonna do videos. It'll be on Eric's YouTube. We'll probably talk about it in DL and extend because that's what we do, and then I will write about it. So to see how that works out, it's kind of like a trifecta of things. So we're because I'm not really a video guy. I mean, I like doing videos, but I really don't like looking at my stupid face, and I think I babble too much and I skip my words a lot. So anyway,
just like
talking. I think Eric is better suited for that. And what? And anyway, so that's kind of what's going on right now. And I've just been kicking stuff out on the Biddle discourse and see what kind of conversation I can drum up if anything that I'm doing is actually worth talking about.
Well, I noticed your post on video editors and Caden Live.
I noticed that you commented on that.
Yep.
Yeah. So actually, that article I wrote was partially directed at you, Rocco. Sort of.
Sort of. What were you trying to say in that article, Nate?
You're not Caden living correctly because it's not crashy at all. So
I must not be doing it correctly, right?
So you're not holding it right. You got to hold it like this. Yeah. No, I just because I've had such a good experience in doing it, and so I want to see, maybe is my experience line up with other people? Like Eric, he says he likes Olive. He says it works with him better, and obviously you said you've got, what is it, Davinci Resolve that you're using?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And then,
well, look, Kdenlive has been fantastic as a open source video editor. It is the best open source video editor out there. There's no question about that. It just has some. I
don't know if it is the best.
I believe it is.
Because OpenShot has some really neat features too. The way it integrates like some Blender functions, and so you can do, it's like a different kind of video editing almost, and so I don't know. It's like I like these different, I'm not sure one is better than the other necessarily, like definitively better, but I think it has they have a great way of implementing their solution, I guess.
The way I look at better, and maybe that, I don't know if it's the right way or the wrong way, the way I look at better is the feature set and how powerful it is and what options it gives you and allows you to do. So comparing Kdenlive to OpenShot, I believe Kdenlive is better because it gives you more power and gives you more options than OpenShot does. In the same way that Davinci Resolve gives you more power and more options, way more than Kdenlive does, and that's why I switched to it. But as far as, like I said, open source editors, and it's definitely a fantastic editor. There's no question about it.
Well, Rocco, isn't that a something of a personal preference? Because to me, I think OpenShot is better than Kdenlive, and that's what I edit my videos in, just because I think it's simpler, it's easier, and it does my layering better than Kdenlive does. So
it's definitely a preference.
That's
brother.
a matter of personal.
That's why I
said.
They want
to try Kdenlive again.
That's why I said that I view better as being giving you more options and allowing you to do more things. OpenShot may be more simple, where it allows you to do this, and if that works for you, that's great. I just view the amount of options that you have being as better. So it's all personal preference, dude.
They all bring something. That's what's nice, is that they all do things slightly differently, right?
Yep.
And that's what's great, is that OpenShot works great for some people. And I personally love a lot of the things they do, but their timeline is a little just not good for me. Their refresh rate, there's just some things in there that are clunky to me. Same thing with Kdenlive. I mean, I recognize that Olive is a very bare bones system, but I actually appreciate that, because I only use a few things and I want them to work right every time, and they do. They're all keyframeable. That's a big deal for me, as well, as that everything I do I can put keyframes in, and that's not the true case in Kdenlive. And so there's just some stuff in Kdenlive that doesn't work right in the way I do things. And so I don't discount it. I mean, Kdenlive's amazing. Some of the scripting things you can do, automation, it's very powerful, it's very mature, and it's a great product. And I think a lot of people get phenomenal use out of it. And I would never say that it's a bad thing. It's just not the thing that works for me. I'm glad I have a choice.
Right.
People who edit video in open source editors a decade ago, you didn't have a choice. You had like maybe two choices, and both of them were not particularly great. So
yeah,
the fact that we're
spoiled for Windows
choice
Media
now.
Maker.
Yeah.
Linux.
Windows Movie Maker. Now, has anyone ever tried Olive? I just want to know what.
Yeah, that's what I've been talking
about Olive.
That's what I've been talking about. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've been using it for the better part of a year. Yeah, and it's I keep coming back to it, because I mean, really, I think when I look at all the ones that are out there, I'd love to have Blender be the one that I could settle on, because it has so many. The video editing is just one part of an overall ecosystem, an entire system of things that you can do, the 3D modeling and 2D stuff, and it's all integrated together. And if I could figure out those things, I'm sure I could make some amazing videos.
It's a monster program.
Right. Yep. And this is their first release with the refactored video editing UI. I think they still have some work to do there, but I heard an interview with the guy that's been working on that, and it's something they're putting focus on. So I have hope that it's going to be easier to use. I found it very difficult to use, but I think, again, it's yet another good choice that we have available to us, and you use what works for you.
Colin, you use Blender, right?
Yeah, I use Blender. It is a little bit of a learning curve, and it's a bit more manual than what KDN Live is. But once you get used to it, it's not too bad actually. I find it pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I had some issues with I really like the right click to ripple delete and stuff. There's some things I've gotten very used to in other editors that I just couldn't quite replicate in Blender yet. And I think it's one of those things that it can't be that difficult to extend to include those types of features. I know you can do a lot of scripting and a lot of stuff in there, so I'm sure it's coming. Yeah,
I've never done scripting. I haven't done scripting. I just sort of stick to the basics, go outside things a little bit, but I think it's quite good.
The changes they've made for this release around that video editing UI are amazing. I mean, they came forward a huge leap in one release, so I have every faith.
Which release is that, Eric?
Was it 2.8? Whatever the latest major
2.8 is the latest on Blender.
Yeah, so the 2.8 UI was a new feature, that video editing module UI, whatever it is.
Right. Okay. The one thing I've found with Blender is I have no fear of crashing. I've never had a fear of crashing in Blender. KDN Live, I do. There seems to be some certain things that can just crash KDN Live. Blender, I've never had that issue. So that's the only thing that I've really been happy with it. Because the problem is when you get into video editing, you get so into it, you just forget to save sometimes. And I know that we should do that regularly when you're video editing, but you can just get in that zone and you just forget about it. And it can be catastrophic if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
The way I see
that's what I like about OpenShot. It's got that automatic saving feature in it.
So for me, I have more crashing issues on the Windows side when I have to do CAD work there than anything else that I do. And what I've learned through several instances of losing hours worth of work, you have to treat any kind of project on a computer like voting in Chicago. Vote early, vote often. Save early, save often. That's just what you got to do. You just have to do that. There's just no.
Are you implying that all the program or all the videos that people are putting out are dead?
Well, can I mention that Davinci Resolve has all of these features that you guys are talking about? Just saying.
You know what, and Rocco, that's a very fair point. But I will also say that Davinci Resolve is the difference between the 24-piece toolkit and the 172-piece toolkit. Like you can do a lot with that small toolkit if you know what you're doing. But I agree. I honestly, and I think this probably goes for any piece of video editing software, professional or otherwise, Davinci has incorporated. I mean, is there anything you can think of that you'd want to do to a video that Davinci doesn't have?
Nope.
There's audio, there's clipping, there's coloration, there's the exporting, there's the import. I mean, it's everything.
And it's the workflow itself. Everything is set up with keyboard shortcuts. And I mean, it's just set up to where if you aren't organized in Davinci Resolve, you might have some issues. But if you're organized and you have everything set up the way you should, as far as editing, in my opinion, there's nothing better.
When I used it in 12, it really only had the import screen, basically where you brought in your clips and stuff, the editor itself, which was at that point, I mean, about as standard as you could get. There weren't a lot of extra features. I mean, the clip, ripple deleting, like all that sort of stuff was kind of there, but not really.
It's all there now.
Well, I know, and I mean, the point I'm making is that they had that, and then the coloration, and then the exports. They had like 3 or 4 modules, and when I looked at it, whenever you were installing it, I went back and looked at 16, and I was just like, wow, they have done a lot. I mean, it's the value you get for that. I mean, that is an incredible application.
Well, you see all of these amazing transitions and everything else that all of these videos are doing. You can either, go out and purchase these transitions from people who will make them for you, and you can just drag and drop them in, or you can just create them yourself. it allows you to create those transitions manually, which is fabulous, which is something that no other editor allows you to do. So,
right. And I mean, that's the difference, right, between something that you're going to pay good money for. And if you were in a position like Rocky, you just got to a point where you were editing enough videos and just needed that next level of editing. I mean, I'm not at that point, and I'm not saying that I won't get there, but I think you kind of, and maybe that's the complaint that people might have against these open source editors is like once you reach a certain level of trying to do things, that maybe you kind of hit the ceiling, right?
Well, when you spend hours every week editing, and that's what you do, then it opens up so many other things that you can do that are shortcuts that save you time. So if you're just editing normal videos, a normal amount of videos, Kdenlive is fine, OpenShot is fine, Olive is fine. But when you can see how much time you can save, it's I wouldn't do without it right now.
I've only got one thing to
Rocco,
say. If we all went to Davinci Resolve, Adam Grubbs would have no time on his hands.
Yeah. And the thing about Davinci Resolve is right now on Linux, it doesn't work with AMD codes at all.
That's why you need to buy NVIDIA.
Davinci. No. I've had too many problems with NVIDIA, but I try and bring up the Davinci Resolve and it crashes my computer's very hardcore. So
yeah, there are issues with AMD. Yeah, I agree on that.
I think it's important to make the point here that we obviously value open source and that we're in no way denigrating these projects. They've come so far in such a short amount of time, and I'm not joking. And I said 10 years, but I mean, if you went back 5 years, even less, the landscape of open source video editing was not very bright. And the amount of progress they've made in such a short amount of time, like I can foresee that within a couple of years, they're going to close the gap even further. And so, yes, there's a choice to be made. And this is true with a lot of professional software. Nate's gone through this with FreeCAD and, and using a proprietary version instead, just because as a professional, it makes his life a little easier. I think for most people, what these open source video editors offer is going to cover. I mean, Nate made the joke about Windows Media or Windows Movie Maker. I mean, we're already well beyond that, right? These systems are very capable. You can make we see content made every day on these systems, and they look great. So, yeah.
Tell you the truth, I come from a background of nonlinear editing, doing A/B roll and cutting in and creating transitions through a video mixer board and everything else like that. And if you want digital video, that meant you had to have a capture card, and you'd lose yet another generation of video going onto the capture card. It has changed so much, even all along from the home market all the way up into the professional market, that with the current nonlinear systems like Kdenlive, like Davinci, and I mean even Blender, and still don't consider Blender an editor. It has an editor in it, but anyway, all these systems, even on the Mac and stuff like that, it just come leaps and bounds, and it really has opened up some real interesting ideas and worlds for people to explore that just you had to either become part of a community access channel, cable access channel, or go to school and try to get a job at a broadcast house or something like that to have access to this stuff before. So, I mean, this is really kind of an exciting time.
Well, the other thing that Davinci Resolve offers that the other editors don't is the video processing, which utilizes your GPU to do that, which cuts the render time double at least for projects. And that is another shortcut, a time-saving shortcut, where I would have to let Kdenlive run overnight sometimes to render a video, where I can
Those
render
2-hour videos.
Yeah. And I can render a 2-hour video in probably between 45 and 50 minutes. And that is awesome.
Yeah. I think Blender does do a lot more on the hardware side as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's an area where they'll probably catch up. You know?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say what Davinci Resolve has is the hardware control panels. Have you looked at those? Those are amazing.
I have seen them, dude, but
I would
they
want
are
one.
so over my head.
Who cares? Just get it for the nerd factor.
Do you see the keyboards and all of the dials on them? Oh my gosh, yeah, they're beautiful. But I mean,
I would want that just because, you know, I mean, I think it just looks.
But I would sit there and look
awesome.
at it, dude. Like, how do I use this thing? Like, there's
It
just
doesn't matter. You have to use it. You have to use it. Just have it there.
Yeah, I do see that.
The knobs and the levers and oh yeah.
Hey, welcome to everybody that joined. Derek, Wendy, welcome. Chris, Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing well.
All right, dig it.
Good.
Sorry I'm late, but
Well, the thing is some open source projects have had additional hardware rendering, like Darktable. You can use your graphics card to help with the processing power of your images in Darktable already, and that's been around for a while. So hopefully we can get that in some of the video editors that are open source as well. The thing I'm jealous of for Davinci Resolve is the way that you can manipulate color and color correction, but it won't run on my system.
Yeah, actually, she was asking me about
Buy
that.
an
Rocco,
NVIDIA
and I
card. Wendy,
No
buy an
way.
NVIDIA card.
Well, also, Wendy, what you also have to keep in mind when you're using your video code as the encoder is sometimes you sacrifice some quality for that as well. I know that that's true in a lot of streaming, but in some video editors, it does happen as well. That's why I don't use OpenShot. OpenShot does have that built in if you are running like the flat pack version now, I think. But I found that it was just too much of a sacrifice, so I started using my CPU again with H.264.
See, and it doesn't reduce the image quality with Darktable, and apparently it doesn't reduce the video quality with Davinci Resolve. So there's got to be something in there that we
It
can
definitely
get that.
doesn't reduce the video quality on DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, my NVIDIA card GPU is more powerful than my AMD CPU, especially for video-related tasks.
if you have like a gigabyte of memory dedicated to on that card for graphics processing, I mean, you don't even barely have to take any cycles up on the main board to render anything.
No, I mean, I know that. I'll tell you what. When when I'm rendering a video, that fan on in my system and the 2080 in there puts off so much heat. I mean, it puts off as much heat more sometimes than when I'm actually playing a AAA game. So it's definitely working it. Let me tell you,
It's doing something. Yeah.
Yep. All right, I think we beat that to a dead horse. Let's move on. Anybody else want to mention something they've been working on?
Well, I got a couple things, but I don't want to.
Well, one of the things, I mean, along what we're talking about just a second ago, but I've been trying to learn Blender, and I'm having a ball learning it, but it's not getting to the point where what I want to be able to do is use the physics engine in it to show the energy management of flight. So, that's all flying an airplane is really energy management. How do you control these surfaces and various controls to counteract other forces and stuff like that? And I'm trying to get to the point where I can adjust value. Let's say I reduce the thrust. What is that going to do for everything else? And I'm really not finding any information out there on how to set up the physics engine like that. I don't know. Do I need to set up rig up a puppet or what? I don't know.
Yeah, you're way over my head.
Way over my head, dude. Way over
For
my
what
head.
For what it's worth,
I get lost
Chris?
in Blender.
So Chris, for what it's worth, I want to say it's either the Unreal or I think the Unreal Engine. You might want to look at that as well. We're actually using that in my workplace for doing simulation, because it's an open source tool. So
yeah, I'm breaking the surface of simulation and engines right now, and it's blowing my mind on how much there is to deal with. So.
Are you doing engines, or are you actually doing the whole flight, flight mechanics?
Basically, this is I'm trying to make a video describing potential energy, kinetic energy, and using gravity to increase the speed of the plane and stuff like that for various things that are non-computer related that eventually when I get these videos pulled out, you'll be looking at me like, what? I don't know. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it compensate it enough of the variables that it's almost like a flight simulator, but I want to prove it to people who have a certain skepticism, saying that, okay, if we can prove the plane that this model is behaving like it would in the real world, let's change a factor on that and see what happens. And that's where I'm trying to get. And
a lot of that work might already be done, actually.
It might be.
Searching.
Yeah. But half the fun is educating myself. So.
All right, Eric, you wanted to mention stuff?
Oh, it's all self-serving. I didn't want to like.
That's what I brought the topic up for. So
I'm not very good at that part of it. I think the favorite thing I did this week was my interview with Wendy on DLN Extend about Darktable. So like Chris was mentioning about using a specific tool and having an understanding of what it is and how to use it. So Nate and I looked at Darktable and we're like, oh, there's a new release, a new UI, like that looks cool, but we have no idea what it's supposed to do. So we're like, hey, maybe Wendy will come on and explain it to us. So if you haven't heard it, Wendy gave us about 15, 20 minutes, but it's a great overview from a professional's perspective of someone who's been using Darktable and like what it is, why it's important. And I mean, Wendy, I don't know if I saw some feedback, some folks had on Twitter and elsewhere have kind of said that they thought that it was a good overview. But if you don't know what Darktable is, like Wendy did a really good job explaining what it is, why you might use it. And I know a lot of people love photography and want to shoot in RAW and want to, process their images. And I didn't understand the difference between the light table and the dark table side of things and like how all that kind of fit together. And so,
yeah, things like Darktable and raw therapy and that kind of, there's so many settings in there. They talk about like GIMP and stuff like that, but the settings are unreal.
Well, the thing to me that I thought was really impactful, like interesting and impactful to me, and why I would want to shoot in RAW is obviously shooting in JPEG crushes everything down. And like once you've done that, there is no going back. Like you can't really undo the interpolation that your camera did to create that image. It's done, right? So having RAW, and then she was explaining how you can step through these transformations and adding filters and things, and then be able to you still have the raw image. So you can always go back to it. And so, I don't know, Wendy, was there anything like that stood out to you and that, I don't know.
I don't know. It was just a lot of fun. So
yeah.
I've got to spend actually quite a bit of time this week talking to different people and getting to talk about Darktable. And it's always fun to get to talk photography and Linux at the same time while chatting with people in the community. So it's been a very eventful week for me, where I've spent more time sitting here in front of the microphone this week than I have for a very long time.
Yeah, it's always a success story to me. So we talk about, can you do things on Linux, on open source? We know developers can develop code. We know, there are certain use cases. machine learning. There's definitely cases where Linux, and in the server realm, obviously, but from Nate's been trying to come to terms with how do I do CAD in a professional way at my job on Linux. And so to have another example of someone who can actually use Linux and use it in a professional sense, I always love to hear those kind of stories.
Yep.
And the other stuff is just, my goofy YouTube channel where I got to test Manjaro, the 19.0 previews, which was fun. They're looking really, really good, really polished. The new theming is really nice, and more good stuff out of Manjaro. What can you say? And you had Philip on Spotlight last week, so that was a good tie-in.
Yep.
And App Image Launcher, since
App Image
folks, I
Launcher.
brought it up last week and everyone, I never heard of that. So I thought I'll do a video on that. And yeah, just
that was a great video, by the way, Eric. I just watched that right before this stream, and I thought it was great. I did a video on it too, one time, but you did a so much better job than I did.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I'll watch yours to compare. I may have a different opinion on that, but I appreciate your feedback.
I just want to dovetail into that app image launcher. To me, like for the Universal Package Manager discussion, that is a total game changer, because app images are always at the bottom of my list because it just was kind of squirrely trying to maintain it or kind of keep track of it. And that literally changes everything. It's my whole Christmas light nonsense that I did, holiday lights. I have now that app, I was using an app image, and now that I can nicely run that, it's not sitting on my desktop anymore, like the app, a link to that, a shortcut to that app image, and just like all these different little things now, it just made managing app images beautiful. And what you didn't cover in there, Eric, what I discovered was if you download an app image, like in Firefox, it automatically has a hook in there, a tie, so it will automatically install it for you. So there's no faffing around. It's just there. It's executable. It's like awesome. It makes app images like awesome now. Now, like
I kept coming back to the idea that app images always feel second class, right? Because they don't integrate well. Even, I mean, if some of them do ask to integrate, and when they do, that's fine. And they so like for a good example, if you try to open something and then that menu that your desktop environment is going to bring up is based on which programs it sees, an app image will never show up in there if it doesn't integrate itself, right? And so that's one of the ways that it makes it a first class piece of software on the system. So yeah, I've heard of it. I've been using it for a long time, just assuming everyone else knew about it. And that's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay. I guess.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't.
All right, Vince, what have you been doing lately, dude?
Talking to me? Oh,
yeah. You're the guy that gives refunds out. I love it.
These guys. I mean, I was just commenting that. I mean, like you were saying, this stuff is just going way over my head. I put out a video as well on learning how to use aliases in Terminal. And I know that the Terminal is not everyone's cup of tea, but I love learning it, so I'm just sharing it. But I guess what I wanted to really try and make my hand at making videos, because for the longest time I'd wanted to edit my family videos, and until now, until I found open source, until I found Linux, I really didn't really have a way of doing that unless I spent a ton of money. And so with my making of YouTube videos, that's been my way of learning how to do this. And I mean, you guys are all my guinea pigs, so all my failures go on YouTube, and then my family ones are the best ones. See?
Right.
But the most exciting thing that's happening to me is I'm going on holidays tomorrow to the beach, which is funny because we live literally 20 minutes away from the beach, but we never go. It's only once a year that we go to the beach, and that's when we drive somewhere up the coast. So we have but the way I'm going to bring this back to Linux is I'm really, really far behind in my podcasts, and we have a 4-hour drive ahead of me. And I just was counting. I've got 11 hours of podcasts to listen to. and I have 3 women in my family, so my wife and 2 daughters, that will be listening to Linux podcasts for 4 hours tomorrow.
Do they know that?
I don't think they know that yet,
You don't want to
Dan.
get to your destination, do you?
I don't think they know that yet.
It's about the what is it? How does it go? It's the journey, not the where's Zeb?
I know the guy that made that.
Well, yeah. But man, I am so far behind on the podcast. Ever since the holidays, I have had less time at work where I'm just doing something specific. So I've been doing a lot of switching, moving around. So I don't have a lot of time to listen to the podcast right now. And I am so far behind right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Same here.
I've got 3 Linux spotlights queued up.
Well,
and you know I've heard them when I've commented on your videos. So,
well, Philip's episode was awesome. That guy does pretty much everything that you can think of.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yep.
And his name is actually Hans. And that's my father's name.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Hey, Vince, I got a perfect way for you to listen to all 3 of those podcasts quickly. You open up 3 tabs and hit play on all 3 of them and listen to them all at once.
Not going to happen.
That would be a waste.
That's definitely one way to do it.
Definitely a method.
How you doing, Allie?
Yeah, but wouldn't it freak you out?
I'm doing fine, Rocco. Good to see you.
Good to see
together.
You, Jacob, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Just kind of seeing what this is all about and hanging out in the background.
Well, you are more than welcome to hang out or join in whenever you want to, but you may have to just interrupt sometimes because it's a busy place sometimes. So, and so you were on the Jupiter Extra show with Brunch with Brent, correct?
Oh yeah, that was me. So
very nice, great episode, dude. Great episode.
It was. Brent's so classy. I mean, that was the first time I got to tell that story, and it just kind of felt really at ease. And now it's one of those things where I don't think I've shut up.
Well,
so
so don't shut up. Give us the Cliff Notes version.
So the Cliff Notes version is after a couple deployments to Iraq and one to Afghanistan, I kind of came back and some other challenges hit me all at once, and I became a non-functioning human being. And part of the ability to control parts of my life came and were inspired from, being expressive with computers and trying things out with the Jupiter Broadcasting crew. And really the Tech Snap show was the lectures I needed for my master's program. And that made a huge difference in my life and my employment and my family. So that was a big deal for me.
Cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Very nice. Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. I mean, what is it on the Linux spotlights you do, everybody? It's the people are the greatest asset, or something along those lines. Yep. And it's I love listening to those, not just because of the content, but because of that intro. It reminds me every time that this is a great community that's helped me out a lot, and I want to participate more. So
awesome. Well, maybe we'll sit down for a Linux Spotlight episode with you. How's that?
Sounds good. I actually need to try to practice remote recording of my podcast, so I'd love to find some volunteers for that someday.
So give us a link, or we'll post it in the YouTube chat.
Cool. Yep.
If you put it in the Zoom chat, we'll post it in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I do want to mention for the Linux Spotlight, if there's anybody you guys, would like to see a Linux Spotlight on, please let me know. You can do that through Telegram, through just talking to me through the website, through the contact form. I have a list of people that I want to get on the show. And I have to go, I am going through that list. But if there's somebody that you think would be an awesome guest, by all means, suggest them. I will start out by saying that I'll do it early. That way Eric won't yell at me. This past week was Philip's episode. This coming Wednesday at 6 a.m., it will be the Shakespeare of Linux episode with Dave Muller, Dreaming Wolf. So you will get to hear all about his poetry that he writes and everything else.
That's awesome.
Can't wait to see that.
Excellent. The only suggestion I have is there's this guy that does this live stream for like a community every week. You may have seen. It's on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I've seen that live
I
stream.
He
think
could
everyone
help
get
make
that.
one of my predictions come true.
Actually, that's already set up, Eric. That's going to
Is it?
happen.
Okay.
Yes, that's way far away, but that's going to happen
All right.
someday.
You're going to ruin it for me.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I have.
Right,
I
it's
have,
gonna be. It'll be next year, Dan.
I know, probably first one next year.
I maybe have too high a hopes of reaching out to everybody, because what I try to do is I try to mingle in people that you would know from seeing them out in the public, like Chris Fisher and all those guys, but also the community members, because everybody matters and everybody's story matters. And so I've been trying to mingle those in, but I've also been, I sent an email to Linus and see if he would be on Linux Spotlight. Obviously, I didn't get a response. I don't know why, but he didn't. He must be really busy right now because he didn't respond to me. And there's other ones out there that I have tried to get and, maybe not got a reply, but there are a few very exciting episodes that I have lined up coming up. That I can't share yet.
The more pop. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna throw someone that came to mind. I've been watching a lot of his stuff lately. Is Ven.
Yep.
I would love to get some backstory on that guy. I mean, watch one of his. This is the way I set up audio, and he makes it sound like it's so straightforward and easy, and you just look at it going, Ven, what are you talking about?
He is an absolute audio genius, dude, and I would love to sit down and talk with him. So yes, he is on the list, and I actually already did reach out to him. We just haven't been able to connect with an episode yet. So
cool.
Well, the more popular you get, I mean, the more everybody go, oh, I want to get on this,
That's right. Linus is going to be, he's coming to you, man.
Well, that's the idea. The idea is to have that one place to go for everybody's story. So hopefully that will happen, Steve. We'll see. But
and then he's going to see mine and say, no, there's no way I'm going on that.
No, he's going to see yours, and he's going to see a great community member. That's what he's going to see. So there you have that.
Yeah, so did he do it from his truck, or did he? No.
That would have been cool. But right there.
By the river.
But yeah, it was a great conversation, and
yes, it was.
It was. There may be one or two outtakes. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I mean, again, going back to the editing thing, Dave, when did we record this? 2 weeks ago?
2 Sundays ago?
Yeah, and I'm still editing this episode. Okay.
Wow. When he gets rid of all the superfluous stuff, it'll be down to about 5 minutes.
And it's not because I've been editing his episode but it takes me a full week to edit an LS episode. So I have them recorded so that I can just continue and edit the next one. So as soon as I get this week's episode edited and uploaded, I am starting the next episode and continue, and it's just a snowball thing. So it was 2 weeks ago, and there may be one other person in this room that's going to have an LS episode soon. Yeah. I won't mention.
Busy boy.
I won't mention.
I'm just saying, Rock. I want to be about 15 minutes. You'll be fine.
Now that's what Dave said actually, and it was an hour and 50 minutes. So we found something to talk about for an hour and 50 minutes, and you'll be coming up, Allie.
No, we're coming up. That's good to know, actually.
Yep. But yeah, so if there's anybody you would like to see on Linux Spotlight, definitely let me know. The last thing I want to make sure that I get to mention is I mentioned it in the Biddle Europe, but I would also like your guys' opinion on checking it out, and that is the Ubuntu Budgie menu. So they have taken the elementary menu and forked it to work with Ubuntu Budgie, and it actually works awesome.
Okay.
And so what you do is you add a PPA and you install the applet, and then you can add it to your panel just like you would any other widget or desklet or whatever they call them in Budgie. And this menu is obviously, it's a fork of the elementary menu, so it looks fabulous. It's awesome. Has a lot of customizing things to, enlarge it, make more columns, more grid, either the grid or the icon, the list items. So I have checked it out, and the only reason that I didn't continue to check it out was because when I installed Fedora, I kind of blew up the budgie partition by mistake. So I mean, I didn't use the budgie partition. I just wrecked the partition somehow. I don't know how I did it, but anyway, I have to reinstall budgie to get to play with the menu again. But if you want to check it out, it's a fantastic thing, and I think it's something that budgie really needed. So
This sounds awesome, actually.
Yep.
I might check that out myself.
If you go into the Ubuntu budgie forums, there's a post by David, who was the one that forked it over, and he talks about it, and he gives you the PPA, and basically asking people to test it out. So
cool. I will do that. That's awesome.
All right, that is all I got. What else you guys got? What do you guys want to? Who's been doing more content?
Well, I've been doing quite a bit of content, and the last few videos and another video will be of Linux Mint, because I've been focusing on the death of Windows 7 and somebody wanting to switch to Linux, and how to set it up and how to configure the Cinnamon desktop, etc. I'm also going to be doing a video on this netbook right here. It's all taken apart. It had a bad hard drive. I'm going to show how you can get Linux running on a netbook from replacing the hard drive and sticking a RAM stick in it and putting that in there. I'm editing an Archman episode eventually too. I've got that recorded. That's just not edited. So I've been working on a lot of stuff.
Nice.
I'm trying to keep track of it all, actually. So
very nice.
I've been having some guys show up in my stream, kind of hijacking the chats.
that happens often, Steve. Let me tell you,
Eric.
Yeah,
Vince.
I'm saying nothing, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, your channel seems to be overrun on Sunday morning.
Yeah. No, it was the Monday night. I did Q4OS. One of my subscribers, White Chocolate, asked me to take a look at it. I was
that's what you did.
Pleasantly, yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was listening. They were listening to Eric and Vince. It was hilarious. I had to go back and watch my own stuff to kind of catch up on the chat. I'm like, let's watch these guys. It's been hilarious.
We had fun. We had fun.
Brad, what have you been up to? You're new here, so tell us about it. What do you do, brother?
In the Linux world, not a whole lot currently.
You a distro hopper or what?
No, I've pretty much run Arch for the last 3 years.
You're crazy. Okay, we got to establish that.
Okay, yeah.
Hey! Don't start that.
There.
I think he said, by the way, I run Arch. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, basically. Arch on the ThinkPad, Arch on the desktop, Arch on the server.
Desktop environment?
The desktop is currently running GNOME because I've never really done it, so I'm trying to figure that out. ThinkPad has XFCE.
Well, don't tell Eric he's all gnomed out. Or is that Nate? Nate's all gnomed out, I think. Yeah, that's who it is.
No,
Nate's all
I'm not
gnomed out.
I'm loving them. Actually, it's funny. I see Plasma now as like it's like the utility. It's my utility desktop where I just put it on something where I don't actually use it. Like it's the workstation one, and the one I use day to day now. I cannot explain it. It's like when you like something for no logical reason, and you think someone says, "Well, why?" and you think, "I don't know, because I do." And
yeah, I know that feeling.
I have the opposite understanding of Plasma, where I just irrationally don't like it.
For no apparent reason.
Yeah. I start with Trinity and so on, and that comes second fiddle now to open box for some reason. I've just got so used to it, and I use Trinity on my other machines, but my main machine's running open box.
And I spent a long time, many years, just not getting it. Like I would use GNOME and just be like, nope, sorry, just don't doesn't. But I have to say that I do use Ubuntu, and they've done all that stuff that I would normally do for me. And so I guess what I'm really saying is I like GNOME, but I really like Ubuntu 1910.
I like Pop OS, but I like GNOME. So like, okay, so I started on KDE and I loved KDE, but I don't know. It got to the point where we would go back and forth with. I would go back and forth with KDE and GNOME, over and over and over again, until it got to the point where I would switch back to KDE and I said, "Oh, this is so awesome! I love it." And then all of the things that would happen, that this would crash, or this wasn't working right, or this wouldn't look right in this situation. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't have these problems in GNOME. Like, GNOME may be what it is, but it is uniform and looks great all across the board, where in Plasma, that's not always the case. And I know that there's workarounds, and I know you can do this and that. And I've done all of those things, but it's the point that I don't have to do them when I'm in GNOME.
You want to know what surprises me more than anything? I've really enjoyed using Nautilus. As much as I could not stand it. So little things like I do so much with multiple versions of files. If you put the same file name in, it'll tell you already have a file with that name. It's like, oh, that's smart. Okay, well, I guess I can't do that. Or if I copy files, paste them into a folder, and then go into that folder, those files are still selected for me. Just little tiny things like that I've noticed, where it's like somebody put some real thought into this.
Yep. Well, I love Dolphin. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't it do the same thing with a folder and a file? Like, even if I'm not sure which desktop environment does it, but I've tried to name a folder the same as a file and it wouldn't let me. Now, it should let you, because a folder is different to a file.
Not technically.
I can't remember which environment that. Well,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. So
if I was making a text file and I was renaming a text file the same as that text file, then I can understand. But if you're naming a new folder the same as a file, it should let you do that.
Well, technically, your folder is a file.
Yeah, that's a file.
It's a different kind of file.
Right.
Okay.
Everything's a file. Yeah.
It's on the inode definition of how it maps it to where the sectors on your drive.
You guys are too technical for me.
Yeah. There's a low latency kernel behind all that.
Here's a cool thing.
More and more.
The cool thing I wanted to bring up. So there's not been a lot of stories. So CES 2020 was this week.
Yep.
And there's not a lot around Linux, but I have to give Dell credit for stepping up and putting their XPS 13 developer edition with Ubuntu front and center, and that turned a lot of heads. And Barton said he was going to with Dell was really going to push the Sputnik program, and I have to say that putting themselves out there at CES and it's encouraging.
Go ahead, Dan.
It's a Windows 7 end of life alternative put out for everyone to see.
Yes and no, but I mean, it's the idea that a major manufacturer is targeting the developer community and saying, here's our high-end product, and we've decided to put Ubuntu on it, which is,
it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
And did you see the System 76 Helio at the AMD booth? That was absolutely awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, there were some cool things, very cool things.
So again, high-end systems, probably a very niche market, but the idea that there is some representation there was it's encouraging to me, right? I mean, they recognize that there are people that want it, and I mean, it would be great if Lenovo said, "Gee, people really love Linux on ThinkPads. We should probably show that."
That would be good, actually.
Quite honestly, I think hardware manufacturers are going to start picking Linux up within the next couple years, because a lot of people are starting to use it, and the technology is getting better. Now we have Proton, where people are gaming on it without having to jump to a bunch of hoops. is becoming more and more popular. So as it becomes more and more popular and easier to use, I think we're going to start seeing that.
The other story I saw, which I thought was, and this isn't necessarily a story. So Joe Rogan on one of his podcasts mentioned to someone the idea of Linux, dual booting Linux, that it's not that hard to use. And I was just like,
Really?
okay,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Joe Rogan's the one that recommended that.
Well, he was talking to somebody, a guest, and he was saying, kind of in a way, in a joking way, like the guy should run it just to annoy people. But what came out of it was, he said, people's understanding of Linux isn't really necessarily accurate. It's not that hard to use, and you can dual boot it, and it is an alternative. And just the fact that someone like him, who's not really a technical person, but to know that it exists, know that you can do a dual boot situation. I mean, I was just like, wow, this is really like Joe Rogan saying this on his podcast that millions of people listen to. So
It's pretty awesome.
Yep, definitely cool. The last thing I'm going to get in is Steven. What do you run, dude?
Right now, I am running Debian Buster with OpenBox and DWM window managers.
Nice.
Where'd you go in your OpenBox?
Oh yeah, OpenBox is really good. I mean, it's very lightweight. It's very efficient, but it's also very user friendly as long as you have the appropriate tools and everything installed with it. I did run Arch for about a year and a half prior, and I was actually running on the testing repos, and which is probably not the best idea. And things went south, and I got tired of it. So you know what? The poster child for stability in Linux is Debian. So let's do Debian.
Good, very good. Well, yeah, I can't say that I would want to run Debian, but to each his own, brother. To each his own.
Like you were talking about earlier, it's kind of like Fedora in terms of if you really want to set things up exactly like you want. Debian doesn't do a lot for you in terms of customization, so it's something that you can build it exactly how you want it, and it's kind of nice.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, if you want more up-to-date packages, I always suggest just upgrading to testing. I don't suggest anyone do what I do and run Debian SID, because I basically had a breakage last week because of that. But testing is also a great option if you want more up-to-date packages with Debian.
All right, we are out of time for this week. Another 2-hour episode flying by like it's the cool thing to do. So that's all we got. Fedora 31 was the challenge this week. Varying opinions on it, but overall, I would say it passed with flying colors. This week will be Farron OS, Plasma next. We'll just say Farron OS. How's that? Because we'll just say Farron OS. But everybody gets a last word. So, Brad, do you have a last word you want to say?
Just thanks for doing the show and all the stuff you do for the community.
Cool. Tony, last word.
Thanks for doing the show, Rocco, again. Second time. I have installed on the testing laptop the distro challenge.
I had no doubt, Tony. I had no doubt.
Well,
it was almost unfair. We gave you too much time.
I didn't need any time, really, to be honest, because it's something I'd tried previously. It was already saved in a folder downloaded, so I just had to burn it to a pen drive and install it.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
Well, not really. Anyway, take care of you. I can't speak now. Take care, everyone, till next week, and I look forward to seeing you all at the usual time in the usual place.
Very nice. Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. I look forward to Farron OS. I know that GNOME has a lot of distros to customize it, and pretty much all of Plasma is always stock for most distros. And Farron OS doesn't do this at all. It's very customized. kind of unique experience.
Yep. Dan, last word.
Thanks as always, Rocco. And yeah, looking forward to Farron OS. That sounds pretty great. Love some plasma. Man, thanks for everybody for watching. So have a good week.
Colin?
Yeah, thanks for the platform, Rocco. And it's great to be back. Debbie and Sid is okay to run. Just don't go on a 3-week holiday. You'll be fine. And
you never did tell that story, Colin. Not on air.
Yep, looking forward to trying Farron OS. I'm looking for something to replace my main system because it's not working. So we'll see. Maybe I might try Farron OS because it did come on holidays with me anyway. But I still favor GNOME. So I'll see how I go. I might even put it on the main anyway, distro hop a bit. But thanks for the platform here, Rocco. It's great, and the other guys for helping out.
All right, Nate, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream and all that you do. The Linux Spotlight, Biddle. You're just an amazing man. However, I will say your natural scrolling and single-click preference does give me some pause. But thank you regardless.
Single click for the win. Dan Kelly, last word.
Rocco, as usual, thank you and the team, Dan and Zeb and everybody else, which I hope Zeb's getting his sleep he so dyingly needs. Yeah, he put on quite a thing today. I'm looking forward to trying the Farron OS. As far as my distro hopping situation goes, I kind of build it around the Biddle community and take that as my distro hopping thing. So with that said,
Jason, last word.
Well, I just want to say, like everybody else has been saying, thank you for everybody that puts the time into doing the show and all the other shows that you guys do for the Linux community. I will definitely see you guys next week and give you my thoughts on Farron OS.
Nice. Eric.
Well, Zeb isn't here, so I get to get it all to myself. This is my favorite time of week. I get to see all of you wonderful people. I get to chat with everybody. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with Linux, but very little of it in touch with other people. And this is always just so rewarding to me. And I appreciate all of you coming here and sharing with me and listening to me and all of that good stuff. And I look forward to do it again next week. Everyone have a great week.
Tyler?
As usual, thanks for the show. Enjoyed being here and look forward to next week.
Paul, last word, brother.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me, everybody. Look forward to next week. Thanks.
All right, Dave.
Thank you, Rocco and crew, for this wonderful place. Rocco, feel free to oops and lose that file.
Not going to happen.
Everyone else, if he fails to do that, feel free to skip this week's spotlight. And I will see you all next week.
Penguin.
Did it again. Well, thank you, Rocco, for putting this on. I'm looking forward to Farron OS. I need to test that out for a long time, but it's just been on the list, and it's coming around now, I guess. Feel free to join me on my channel, and I will see you all next week.
Steve, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you to my wonderful chat room thieves for being a major part of my day. It's been awesome. Everybody take care.
Vince, last word.
I mean, I've sometimes got to pinch myself some days to realize I'm part of this wonderful community. It's so awesome. Still can hardly believe it. Thanks, Rocco, Eric, Dan, Zeb, Nate, all you guys. Keep up the wonderful work. Very happy to be here. Have a good week, everyone.
Stephen, last word.
Oh, thanks again for the stream, Rocco. It's been a pleasure as always. And Dave, you've sparked my interest. I am definitely checking out your Linux Spotlight now. Gotta see what you're talking about. See you guys next week.
Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having us. I don't have much more to say.
Derek, last word.
Thank you for having me. I'm becoming more and more of a distro hopper the more I spend time with you guys. I've just hopped again. I'm on Salient OS trying it out. I'm actually finding it quite fun.
Derek, there's a hotline for that we have. You can call it at any time for help.
800 or 900?
1-800, now you're sane because you're running Arch.
Yeah, that's the enabler hotline. Vince is a big part of that.
All right. Wendy, last word.
It's really cool to be able to be on here 2 weeks in a row. That's
Right?
amazing for last year. I'm knocking it out in 2020. But we'll see how the rest of the year goes. But have an awesome week, everybody.
Chris, last word.
I was gonna do a quick word on Silver Blue, but I just don't think that's appropriate right now. I'll try to motivate myself and post it up on Discourse, which is a website that Eric has set up, and it's been really a good place. I got to visit it more. Love being here. Sorry I was late, and we'll press on. See you next week.
All right. Allie, last word.
Thank you. I'm just glad to be back in 2020. Happy New Year to everybody, by the way, that I haven't spoken to. Yeah, I hope everything goes well. And thank you for having me again, Rocco. It's always a pleasure to be here. I will be trying Fedora OS. I've already got it in VirtualBox because I'd already reviewed it a couple of weeks ago or last year or something. Anyway, it's updating. I'll have another look and I'll give my opinions next time. Yes. Anyway, thank you.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here in Zoom with me to talk. Otherwise, it would be just me talking, and that would be very boring. Thank you to the YouTube chat for coming every week and listening and joining in the conversation. Thank you to the Fedora devs for all the hard work they do. We will try Farron OS out this week, and we will see you next week. We are officially closed for business. Until then, long live Linux.
Long live Linux. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Y'all come back down here.
Well, we're now in Beverly Hills.